live Q&A every Monday night. First Monday on the airplane channel, and then the rest of the Mondays on the drone channel, which is where you are now. We've got already quite a few people in the chat. I'm going to move this out of the way so it's a little bit better, so I can still read your answers. Tons of questions already, but we'll get to those in a minute. I'm going to say hi to a few people. I see Eric Zagers in there, Northeast Stokes, Volunteer Fire and Rescue. Awesome. Rick's Eye View. Mr. Snowman. Too early for snow, Mr. Snowman. Rob C is here. Flight Media, Independent Drone Channel is here. I think this is the first time that we're doing it post time change. We don't change time in Arizona, so these are always at 4 p.m. Arizona time. So it's a little bit earlier, I think, on the East Coast. It's 6 p.m. now instead of 7 p.m. So hopefully we didn't lose too many people in the switch, but until the time changes again, it's going to be 6 p.m. all winter. And I'm sure people are home by 6, right? And you have nothing else to do anyway. So come over, ask your questions. We have Brad here. We have Little Titan. That's my 5-year-old, Little Titan. No, Tyron, Little Tyron. That's different. What else? Mr. Snowman again. Cool. Well, welcome, folks. We're going to be starting. We have... if you're not familiar with this format, I basically answer all the questions I can get on the channel. So we always have questions of people that are starting, people that have been in part 107 already and have questions about how this works. So fire up your questions in the comments, in the chat. And then we have Dawn today. Jason is out. Big congratulations to Jason. He got married yesterday, so he's taking a couple days before he's coming back. So we wish him the best. We were out there with the whole team yesterday celebrating, and it was awesome. So, yeah, let's get started with question. Eric says, when you notify and fly through the B4U app and air control app, who are you notifying? Tower and manned aircraft pilots don't see this, right? Good question. Yes. Notify and fly is only for the other people that are also using the same app, not for tower, not for aircraft pilots. This is just for notifying other drone pilots in the area that you're flying. And so it's great, actually, to kind of deconflict if you're doing whatever it is and you notice that somebody else is flying there, you're going to be paying extra attention. It's not for the general public. This is not remote ID. This is just really for the people that are using that same app. So you'll be able to see that other people are in the area. I've never fully tested it, but I think it just tells you that somebody is in the area. I don't think it gives you like a very specific exact location of where they are. It just tells you the vicinity. So it's actually pretty cool. I think it's a great idea. It's quite frankly, it's what remote ID should have been in a sense. The purpose is to share the airspace with others. And so notify and fly, and it's voluntary in this case. Northeast Stokes Volunteer Fire and Rescue says, hello from North Carolina. I was wondering if you could talk about a new bill that has been proposed in the Senate banning, again, DJI drones before we buy. Yeah, what is it called? Ethan, do you remember? We reported on last week. It's the American Drone Security Act or something like that. This is like the nth iteration of it because every year they're trying to, the American Drone Security Act, I think it's called the ADSA. Every year they're trying to put it back in the books. The problem is they know that it can't stand on its own. And so what they're doing instead is they're trying to rope it with something else, the National Defense something Act. And as a result, it always gets kicked down, basically. It always gets kicked out because it's not strong enough and it's not something that people actually want to do. And so the latest iteration for 2023 just was proposed. It looks like it's going to go down again until they try again. So we had Rick Scott, I think, was the originator on the Senate side. and I don't remember, Gallagher, I think is the name of the guy on the House side that's trying to do the same thing. So they're trying both on the Senate and on the House side, and it's just not going anywhere each time, which is good. Quite personally, I think it's good. You may disagree, but that's fine. I'm okay with whatever opinion you have on this. But if you disagree with it, it's important that you talk to your representative and let them know that you're not happy with this. So we work with the DA, the Drone Advocacy Alliance, droneadvocacyalliance.org, or that crap, is it .com? I think it might be .com. And then you'll be able to talk directly to the people that are creating these bills and tell them that you oppose it, or if you are with it, then send them a message to let them know you agree with it. So as far as the effect that this may have, this is only to prevent the federal government from using DJI drones or drones made in China. And this does not prevent the civilians from using drones, DJI drones. But if you have contracts that are funded by federal government dollars, then this might have an effect on you. So bottom line is, at this stage, it's only a proposal at the federal level, and hopefully it doesn't go through. So I hope that answers your question, kind of clarifies it. It's going to keep happening, unfortunately, until either it succeeds or these people get voted out of office, and then somebody else will probably do the same. So it's very political. And by the way, I think there's a much easier answer to all of this, and the much easier answer is to use standards. And we say, in order for a drone to be acceptable, here are the standards, and they need to be tested by third party, by the government, by whatever it is. And if they meet the standard, then why can't we use them, right? So it's pretty simple, in my head at least, but I'm sure not in other people's head. Okay. Rick's Eye View said, I get to try out DJI Care Refresh a few days ago. I took off with my Mavic 3 Classic under a power line. I wonder why obstacle avoidance did not see it. So power lines are pretty small. That's probably why these obstacle avoidance systems are limited as to what they actually can see. A cable is just not big enough. So are branches, small branches, ghost branches, we call them. They're not going to be visible. So that's likely what happened. And sorry to hear, that sucks. But if DJI is going to take care of it, that's good. I see a lot of comments popping at the same time over here. All right. Next, Little Titan says, do I need a Part 107 to fly a Mavic Pro 3? It depends. It depends on the way that you're going to fly. So if you're flying for recreational purposes, then you need to have a Part 107 certificate. I'm sorry, what did I just say? No, if you're flying for recreational purposes, you do not need to have a Part 107 certificate. If you're flying for any other reason, non-recreational, then you do need to have a Part 107 certificate. The aircraft in itself doesn't matter. It's the type of activity that you do that drives the need for a Part 107 certificate. Emslaw is saying, thanks for doing these webinars. This is more of a specific question for public safety, but hopefully some folks in the group or Greg will know. Question to follow. Operating as a PAO, Part 91, if you're operating a dock from a PC indoors and you have a VO on the roof, is it considered VLOS or no? VO has eyes the entire time. Great question. So under Part 91, I'm going to assume that you have a COA in this case. It all depends on what you were approved to do with your COA. You can only operate BVLOS if you were approved to do so with only a visual observer. The basic rules under Part 107 are that the pilot, the PIC, and the visual observer must be able to see the aircraft at all times. So operating from a dock with just a VO outside would not work with a PIC indoors. If you were approved under your COA to do this under Part 91, then good. But yeah, I think that's all I can say at this stage. It depends on what you were approved for. Ben Grauer is saying, get an approval an approved waiver to fly up to 1,171 feet, just above the terminal tower in Cleveland. Can they say no at will and without reason? Some of the ATCs have attitudes. If you have an approved waiver, I'm guessing you have to call them beforehand. So yeah, I'm guessing your waiver is telling that you have to call them to tell them that you're flying. Technically, you're not asking for approval at this stage. If you have a waiver, you have been approved to do this. The phone call is only a notification to tell them that you're flying. And I know sometimes we have folks that are from, well, they're knowledgeable, let's put it this way, in this, that might be able to go in here. So if they have the answer, please put it in the comments. But 99% sure that in this case, actually, if Vic is in the comments, he would know because he has a lot of these approvals to fly like this. But from what I understand, if you have the approval and you have to call tower, it's only a notification. They cannot really say no at this stage because you've already been approved under your waiver. So what I would recommend that you do is you contact the office that gave you the waiver. There's a contact on there, and then you ask that question. And if you're having issues with a tower that has an attitude, that definitely needs to be reported. But my understanding is that they cannot say no at that stage. Tim Colton says, can you talk about the bill or law that was passed in Texas you briefly spoke about 2 weeks ago? Can't find anything about it. So what happened is, and I don't remember the actual number for that bill, unfortunately, from the top of my head, but what is Ben saying? Oh, perfect. Ben says code 423. So it's Texas code 423. Yeah, Ben will put a link in the description. The Texas code 423, that had been shut down because it was judge unconstitutional by a judge, and then it was sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts together, and then they went to the appellate court, and then it was overturned by another judge that said no, it's not the case, and the law still stand, and so it's back in the books. So that's basically what it is. It's basically back in the books. So if you look at 423, and like I said, Ben is going to put a link in the description, then it basically is back in the books and active, and it was overturned before. So I think that's a major issue, quite frankly, because it limits the ability to take videos of or photographs of certain things, and it's extremely restrictive for pilots, and it could be a massive overreach for the First and the Fourth Amendment. So the judge decided that it wasn't. So that's my personal opinion, along with others, but apparently not that judge. So the issue that I see with it is that it sets a precedent, and then that precedent could be, put in place in other states, and they would say, well, look, this state did it, and we can do the same thing. And then our rights are taken away, and that's not a good thing. Pew! New Wave Aerial is asking, when a PIC is where did it go? Where the PIC is supervising a training pilot who does not have a Part 107, does that individual need to have a trust certificate? No, actually they don't need to, because as soon as you are supervising somebody else who's flying, they're operating under Part 107, which means that at this stage, trust doesn't apply because trust is a USC 44809 regulation, and so it's not related to Part 107. It's a completely different set of rules. So no, they don't. You need to have a Part 107 certificate. You will be operating under Part 107. They just become a part of your crew. Now they are the person manipulating the flight controls. You're the remote pilot in command, and make sure that you have the ability to take over the controls, either by being next to them or by having a controller that can take over, like a buddy box type of system, or like a controller like the Matrice 300 or the Matrice controllers, where you can just push a button and then you take over. But yeah, no, that's all you need to do. If you're supposed to be keeping your drone in good operating condition, does software update count towards this? What if you don't want a specific update? If I don't update, am I no longer compliant? Nope. You don't have to do the software updates at all. As long as the aircraft is flying safely on the previous update, I say you're good to go. So there's no regulation whatsoever that says you have to do a software update. No, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about that answer. I will say that if the software update is fixing a major bug that had caused a previous crash, then that might be different. But from what I see from software update, it's typically adding new features. But if it's a very urgent software, there was a company, and I can't remember who it was. Not DJI. It was a smaller drone company that was having issues with their firmware, and they updated the firmware and it said, do not fly this drone until you update the firmware because it has critical changes that will prevent the aircraft from crashing. So I would argue that if you flew without it, knowing that there was a firmware update, then it would be really bad decision making and well, I don't know if it would be held against you. I don't know how they would prove it. But anyway, it's just good airmanship. Let's put it this way. Rob C says, I have run into a situation where the outer edge of an airport is a no-fly zone. Is there an app issue with OpenSky or something that some airport have? So Rob, I don't know what no-fly zone actually mean. There's either airspace that is controlled, restricted, or there are different words. No-fly zone is not really a term that the FAA uses. So I'm guessing it's a zero grid. If it's a zero grid, then there are ways that you can get approval, either by going through your LAANC provider, if that zero grid is green in the system, or by going through the FAA drone zone if it's a red area. If it's a fully red area and you can get approval, you cannot get approval through LAANC, then you need to go through the FAA drone zone. But in most cases, there are ways to get approval to fly in those zones, unless it's in DC and Washington, where you have this big area that is an SFR. It's a special flight rule area. But otherwise, in most places in the country, you have a way to get approval. So anyway, if you can give me a bit more information, I can look it up. Travis says the state of Ohio just passed issue 2 that legalizes recreational marijuana. Any advice for drone operator who try to fly while high? Don't do it, because it doesn't matter what the states do. Your operation is governed by federal regulation, not by state regulation. Now, it might also be governed by state regulation, but just very much like in states, let's say Colorado, where you can buy and use marijuana, you still cannot use it to drive while driving. It's operating a motor vehicle and it's just not legal. The FAA specifically says that you cannot use drugs to operate a drone or operate an aircraft. So you could face losing your certificate, suspended, revocation, whatever it is, if you're caught. But also states usually have laws in the books that states that you cannot operate motor vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that would fall under this. So it's definitely 100% against FAA regulation. It's more than likely against state regulation as well. So definitely definitely don't do that. Okay, alcohol or drugs, legal or not in your state, doesn't really matter. It means that you can still use them outside of that, but just not while being under the influence while operating. Do you think the US can create a drone that will meet or exceed DJI specs without costing an arm and a leg? Ooh, that's a good question. So there is wishful thinking, and then there is reality of things. I'm a pretty pragmatic guy, I think. But when I look at the obstacles in creating a drone that is comparable in specs with DJI, can we do it? Yeah, we can probably create a drone that flies like DJI, that has the same specs, the same type of camera. Can we do it for the same cost? Absolutely not. And it just comes down to economics. We just don't have the manufacturing capabilities in grand scales to make it happen. We don't have the labor cost that other countries have. Now, could we build these drones in other countries other than China and make it compete with DJI? Maybe, possibly, there are other up and coming countries that are cheaper or similar in labor to China. Um, so yeah, and I hope that I really do. And I know sometimes I get down on Skydio mostly because of the management at Skydio and the politics that they decided to use to try to compete. But at the end of the day, I do hope that they come up with a competing product that works well and doesn't cost 3 or 4 times what a DJI drone does. Unfortunately, that's not where we are. The cost is still exorbitant for the actual drone in itself. So, yeah, like I said, there is wishful thinking and then there's the reality of things. I don't know that we can be competitive with pricing. I know that we can be competitive with technology. How do I get in touch? Okay. How do I become a retail for DJI company? Well, you have to be a vendor, an approved DJI vendor. So I would recommend contacting them and then they'll tell you how to do that. I don't know the steps to do that. How do I get in touch with DJI concerning unbinding a Mavic 3 bound to an unknown prior owner? I contact their support in this case. Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know how they would deal with that because I'm guessing they're going to need proof that you own the drone. So I don't know. I've never seen that situation, quite frankly. So good luck with that. And but yeah, contact DJI support on their website and see what they say. Tips for breaking into the market as a newer drone service provider. How to get my first client. So go around and find the people that need your service. I know it sounds easy to say, but who's your target market? Who are the people that you're going to sell your services to? And then go meet them in person, send them a mailer, send them, try targeted ads maybe. There's a lot of different ways that you can get to your customer, but I would say the best is probably in person and talk to them about what you do. Talk to them about how different you are from your competition. Why are you better if your customer is already using somebody else? Why should they switch? And what makes you different than the person that they might be using now? It could be price, it could be quality, it could be both of them. It could be the turnaround time. How quickly do you turn around your images if you provide that? Your mapping. I see Jared is in the house here. Jared is our instructor for mapping, and how does he compete with other people? He provides a better service, a quicker service, and better image quality. All these things. So that's what I would do. I would go talk to these people in person and do the introduction and sell your product. It's not easy, by the way. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do. How do I get into search and rescue? I would say search and rescue is one of these things where it's going to be better if you have experience. I'm trying to formulate an answer here. It's going to be better if you understand how it works, if you have experience in the first place. And so if you do, you'll probably know the folks that you need to talk to get into it. I know it's kind of it's a catch-22, right? You got to know someone to get into it, and then that's how you get started. But I would say if you already have search and rescue teams near you, go talk to them, go volunteer, go get involved, and then say, hey, I can bring this technology, I can do this, maybe nobody else in the team can, and then they see an interest in it. If there's no search and rescue teams near you, then you're going to have to start from scratch, which I don't know how you do that, quite frankly, but maybe some folks in the comments can help. Not 100% my area of expertise, but that's definitely how I would do it. Brad says, thanks for the Air 3 deep dive course. You're very welcome. It was my first drone and I put it straight into a tree. So definitely have the opportunity for improvement. Yeah, well, it's, you know what they say, crushing the drone is a matter of when rather than if. So I'm sorry to hear, but hopefully you had DJI refresh. You can get a new one. The Air 3, though, should have full sensors. So I wonder how you put it into a tree, unless it was ghost branches like I mentioned earlier. Next, we have Rocky Mountain UAV Industry Limited. I know you cannot take off or land into a national park. What about national forest? By the way, nice to meet you at CSU UAV Expo in Fort Collins. Awesome. Yes, you can absolutely fly in a national forest. That's not a problem. So I don't know what else to say, but yeah, national parks, no go. National forest, definitely go. Yeah, have fun. We have a ton of national forests near us. So Matt Bagwell, hey Matt, says, I have a question regarding LAANC. Why is it when you try for a waiver in the LAANC available area, will they not grant a waiver for a year? I tried twice and get one around my house, which is only 50 feet. So Matt, I think instead of waiver, I think you're talking about an authorization. And yes, there is a distinction between the two, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. So LAANC is designed so that you ask permission every time you go fly in. And the FAA used to give what they called a wide area authorization, which meant that you could fly into a large area. Like I had Prescott Class Delta Airspace as a wide area authorization, and then I didn't need to do LAANC authorization. Well, they stopped doing that, and now if there is LAANC, they just tell you go use LAANC. Now, I will say this: the only time that you can get around this is if you have an actual waiver. So that's why I made the distinction between the two. Now, let's say you have a BVLOS, Beyond Visual Line of Sight waiver, to fly in Class Delta airspace in Prescott, where we are. Even though Class Delta is LAANC approved here in Prescott, anytime I need to fly under that specific waiver, that BVLOS waiver, I have to get approval via the FAA drone zone to fly in there. I cannot use LAANC. And I know it sounds weird, but in this case, I could actually get a wide area authorization. I can say to the FAA, hey, I'm going to be flying this mission in Class Delta using my waiver every day for the next 6 months. And then they would give me a wide area authorization for that. But otherwise, if you're doing non-waiver operation in LAANC approved airspace, they will not give you a long time waiver. I hope this answers, but yeah, it's yep, it sucks. Okay, next question. I'm marking these as answered. Matt says they keep telling me they will only grant on a one-day basis. That's because it's governed by LAANC. They will not do a year-long waiver. Yep. Yep. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's how it is. Rick's Eye View says, I wonder why they didn't challenge that Texas law based on the lack of jurisdiction of airspace instead of constitutional grounds. That's a good question. And I'll tell you why, because I hate to say it this way, but the judge was pretty clueless when it came to jurisdiction of airspace, because he even said this is a case where they're controlling airspace and they're not controlling privacy. And to which I would say, well, they can't control airspace because the FAA controls the airspace, not the states. But apparently the judge didn't know that. So yeah, that's what it is. Little Titan says, what do I need to apply for a Part 107 certificate? Well, you need to know your stuff. That's what you need to apply. You need to understand regulation, airspace, all that good stuff so that you can pass the test. That's really all that you need. As far as approval from anybody else, you don't really need an endorsement from an instructor. You just need to be ready for the test. And if you're not ready for the test, it's going to cost you $175 because you'll have to take the test again and fail. As a matter of fact, you know what? A funny side story. Today, one of our students asked in our group if how many people failed when they took the exam. And so I responded, because this year so far, we've had 4 failures that I attributed to us. And when I say this, it means that the people completed at least 90% of the course, and then they took true practice exam over 80%. They went to the test and they failed, which is very rare. Out of, over 10,000 people that have taken the exam this year, that's a pretty good number. And then the rest of the people, there were another 10 or so that had failed but had not met those requirements. So I don't count them as a failure for us. They failed the exam, but it, quite frankly, wasn't our fault. But I look back at the data from last year, and last year, if you take away all the people that we completed, it was over 14,000 people that I know took the exam because they gave us their test results. If you take these people out of the picture, out of 57,000 people that took the exam last year, you take 14,000 of them out, and then you take, I'm assuming, another roughly 14,000 for our competitors, however many they are. At least they should have trained the same number of people all combined together. It's possibly more, but I don't know. If you take these people out, and if you see what our competitors are claiming, they're claiming a really good pass rate as well, which I'm sure they do. You take all these people out of the picture, and you look at how many people fail, which was nearly 4,000 people failed the exam last year for Part 107. If you take those 4,000 people on whoever is left that hasn't been trained by us or by one of our competitor, it means that 1 in 3 people fail the exam by self-studying. Okay, and that's conservative. So for every person that you hear online that says, I did self-study and I passed, there's 2 other people that are not telling you that they self-studied and failed the exam. Okay, the average score was 80%. On the exam. Our average score is 92%. Okay, so anyway, I don't know why I mentioned this, but yeah, what do I need to apply for Part 107? DE is saying, hey, DE, I know DE is here every week. Should you put additional lights on a drone flying at night? The answer is yes. It doesn't hurt. If you have them, just make this thing like a Christmas tree so it's visible from a distance. Now, remember, you are putting lights on your aircraft so that it's visible from other aircraft that are flying in the air. Not other drones necessarily, but other people that are flying helicopters, that are flying airplane. You want to be visible from them at night. That's why we have that 3 statute mile visibility rule. That's why you should put your light on top of the drone, not at the bottom necessarily. And if you have other ones, put them on the arms, it helps you, but it also helps other people see the aircraft. So yeah, absolutely. I would definitely do that. Yep. But let me see. Bob Casey says, hello, Greg. Hey, Bob. Nice to see you again every week. Northern Drone Guy says, so confused, line of sight. I can see my drone for 500 feet, but of course, it can fly 1 mile away. Is that line of sight because I couldn't see it? If you can't see it, it's no longer line of sight. So you can fly those drones 6 miles. Technically, theoretically, right, on paper, those drones will fly for a distance. The control link that you have can go for an extended period of time, an extended distance. But as soon as you lose visual line of sight, that's the end of where you can fly it. So, yep, if it's only 500 feet, it means that your vision is only good to see that object 500 feet away. That's how far you can fly it. Big Papa Foot Reviews says, I have a question. I'm a YouTuber and a streamer, and currently I'm not monetized. I'm wondering the following. I do not have Part 107 yet. Can I take videos for fun? I'm a YouTuber that is not monetized. Can I use my DJI Mini Pro 4 drone for videos without my Part 107? Does it really answer your question? I have an important question. I really needing some clearing up. Okay, so here's the answer for that. Do you need a Part 107 if you're a YouTuber? It's all about the intent of the flight. If when you take that drone up and the intent is to create content for your YouTube channel, then one would argue that, well, this is difficult. If you're using it in solely for the purpose of doing your YouTube channel and to get followers and to get more views, then one would argue that it's no longer recreational. In this case, you're building up your YouTube channel, but it's a difficult one, quite frankly. If it's not monetized, although the exchange of money is not always a say, but in this case, because you're using it just for your YouTube channel to create content, then one could argue it's Part 107. But then one could also argue, well, this is for fun, for recreational purposes, so you don't need one. So it's a difficult one once you start saying it's not monetized, because, just say that you're flying the drone for sharing footage with others, and at which point I don't think it really matters. I know this is not the answer you're looking for, but I always have a hard time with forcing anyone to get 107 just because, especially in this case, you know. Does completion of the before you fly checklist and it posting your flight plan constitute final flight approval? Why do you need final flight approval? That's not really a term that the FAA uses. The flight approval, I think maybe I know what you're asking. The flight approval, as far as the FAA is concerned, is approval from the control tower. Okay, it's the control. It's getting approval from the FAA to fly in that airspace. Okay, it's the FAA wants you to get approval from them to fly in that airspace. And so no, completing the checklist does not satisfy that. Going into LAANC and getting LAANC approval, that's what you need to do. Otherwise the FAA doesn't really care about that. Sorry, I'm also trying to read the answers to my previous answer. Yeah, somebody says if your channel is not monetized, you're not improving financially. Yeah, but the financial aspect is not a decision factor for Part 107. If you do footage for a church and you're not getting paid, for example, that still is not a recreational flight because the intent is to provide the footage to the church. And but YouTube is just yeah. Can give my photo to a local paper. I don't expect any payment. It all depends on the intent of the flight, Jordan. The intent of the flight when you took off. If the intent of the flight was to go up and do photos for the newspaper, the local paper, then it's a Part 107 flight because the intent of the flight was to provide it to someone else, whether it's for payment or not. So yeah, I guess you could argue that it's the same for YouTube, but I hate those.
There was a video recently where somebody was flying
FPV, yeah.
In a forest, and they came across a guy being chased by a bear. So
yeah.
They were flying for fun. But
yeah.
They said that, so they sell it to the paper, right?
That's fine. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good example that I kind of use in the course. Ben was saying, you know, you're flying your FPV and then all of a sudden there's somebody getting chased by a bear and you get that footage, you come home, you sell it to the newspaper. Well, the intent at the time you were flying was to fly for recreational purposes. You ended up catching something sensational and then you sell it. That's fine. That's actually okay. And so it all depends on the intent of the flight. When you go up, what is the reason? What is the purpose of your flight? Is it to just fly for recreational purposes, or is it to collect data to either provide to somebody else for a business, for whatever it is? So yeah, it's there you go. I will be visiting the country soon where there is a forest with trees over 700 feet tall. Are trees considered a fixed object that can technically fly 500 feet? No, you cannot. Trees do not qualify, and especially under recreational rules, you cannot fly any higher than 400 feet AGL, period. Even if it's a tower or a big building, you cannot fly 400 feet over a big building if you're flying for recreational purposes. That rule only exists for Part 107 holders that are flying under Part 107 purposes, okay? So in your case, a tree is not a man-made structure. It's not an obstacle per se by definition. So you would have to fly 400 feet above where the tree is planted, where the ground is above ground level. Okay, more questions. Do you have in-person training or testing for Part 107 license? No, we do not do in-person training. It's a lot easier to do everything online at your own pace. Doing in-person training for 107 would require several days of training, which means you can't pause if you're getting tired. You can't rewind if you don't understand something. And so everything online is a lot easier to do at your own pace. Florida just outlawed DJI for government use. Yes. Can I contract out using a Mini 2? Not if it's for government use. It's DJI. So the answer is no, unfortunately. Yeah, if you're working for government use and you're getting paid by the government as a contractor, you can't. I hold a Part 107 certificate. Can still select the option to fly recreational, or do I have to select under Part 107? That's a great question. So we get that question a lot. So let me say this. Before you take off, if you are Part 107 certified, you have the option to follow either sets of rules. So you can say, today, I'm going to fly for recreational purposes. So only, and I'm going to follow the recreational rules under 49 USC 44809. And then you have to make sure you have trust. You have to make sure you have a community-based organization selected. You follow their guidelines. And then you follow like the 7 or 8 other rules that are on the FAA website. Then you're good to go. Or you can say, today I'm going to fly recreationally following Part 107 rules because I'm certified under Part 107. Then I can actually do that. So you pick before you take off. And then from here, you can go fly. You cannot change in flight. You have to do it before you take off. And that's it. So as an example, I never fly. Oh, also make sure that your drone is registered under Part 107 if you're going to fly under Part 107. I don't fly under recreational rules because I don't want to have to mess with CBO guidelines. I know the Part 107 rules really well, and I just follow those. And it's usually a lot easier. So it's up to you, but you have to decide before you take off which one you're going to be using. I'm interested in the inspection side of drone work. Do you recommend being certified in thermography? Yes, absolutely. Thermography is going to bring next level knowledge, and which means that you can charge more money for those services, and it's going to give you better information, quite frankly, information that's not visible with an RGB sensor. Now, you could buy a thermal drone and try to figure out yourself, but thermography is not necessarily super easy. There are things that you need to understand, so getting training is a lot better. And your customers will feel better when you say, hey, I'm level 1 thermography certified. What did I miss? Mark says, Vic mentioned that since receiving his OOP waiver, he needs to use Drone Zone for any of other waivers. Is that only if you want to OOP and another waiver? Would I always need Drone Zone for an airspace waiver? Ooh, complicated question. So let me clarify a few things here. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but maybe you missed it, but I'm going to say it again because it's very important. Vic has an OOP waiver, Operation Over People waiver, and it means that in order to fly in airspace that needs approval in LAANC airspace, he needs to submit an airspace request, an airspace authorization through the drone zone. He cannot do it through a LAANC provider, even if that area is LAANC approved. And the reason is because when you submit that airspace authorization request, you have to attach your waiver number, and you cannot do that from a LAANC provider like a Loft Air Control, for example. So you have to go through the drone zone. Same thing for us. We have a beyond visual line of sight waiver that we have. If we were to fly in controlled airspace, then we would need to submit a waiver to do this. And I'm sorry. No, say that again. If we wanted to fly in controlled airspace, in LAANC approved airspace, we would have to submit an airspace authorization through the drone zone to do it. Okay? I hope this clarifies it. Steve says, I was sent a NOTAM FDC 34840. It's a temporary restriction for 5 months. Is this common? I'm going to have to look it up because typically NOTAMs, the NOTAMs can be good for an extended period of time, but 338, no, that's 4840. Massachusetts, it says temporary flight restriction, affected area, Boston VOR, from the surface, from here to here, yeah. No pilot may operate an aircraft in the area covered by the NOTAM. Only relief aircraft operation under the direction of the fire department in that airspace. Wow, it's not a big area, but yeah, holy smokes, interesting. I don't know what they're doing in that area, but that's definitely a pretty long TFR for a fire department. Usually the ones that I see for fire department, only relief aircraft. I wonder if they're doing training for an extended period of time in that area, maybe. But yeah, I would say it's not unusual to see long TFRs but this one is definitely, for what it is, it's definitely a pretty long duration. Interesting. I did sign up for Part 17. Yeah, awesome. Welcome on board. I've seen a few videos of drones, usually FPV, chasing bush planes. What authorization or waiver do you need to legally do this? I can't get my head around this. So you can fly and chase other airplanes legally, as long as you are not interfering with their operation. So I would recommend that if you do this, you talk to the pilot first, which I'm guessing most of the videos that you're seeing doing FPV, I've seen some as well. These are organized flights that you where you follow somebody else. We did this. We actually flew at an airport north of the Grand Canyon with our own, with a plane and an RFPV, and the pilot was in contact with our pilot, so we knew exactly what was going on. But the rule is you cannot interfere with manned aircraft that are flying. So if you're talking to somebody else and you have the airspace approval and you have, you maintain VLOS and you do all that stuff, then yeah, there's no legality issue to do it. It takes planning to do it properly, okay? Just make sure that you talk to the pilot first and make sure you're on the same page about what you're going to do, all right? Not for the faint of heart. Yeah, you really have to do your planning beforehand. I cannot overemphasize that. All right, Matt says, as a follow-up question of that, is what can be done about the height limit, I'm guessing, in some of the grids to be changed on the US facility map, because some of them are just ridiculous in the restrictions. Matt, that's not an easy one. The UAS facility map is up to the local tower. They're the ones that decide, at least the way I understand it, they're the ones that decide what the height is going to be. And so you would have to contact them. They would have to file an amended US facility map and send it to the FAA and tell them, most of the time there is a reason why they have these restrictions in place. So I would recommend talking to the local tower and see, why maybe there is a restriction in certain areas. Do you have to justify entering a geozone, or if approved, is it only for the mission? Typically, these geozones from DJI are approved for the specific mission. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to say. What app do you use on Google to make sure I'm okay to fly? Any idea? Big Papa Foot reviews, I would say there is the UAS facility map. That's what I use. And it's not on Google, but it's on my computer. I'm going to put a link down in here for you to look at. If I can get to the comment box. I don't know why it's disappearing. What's happening here? There you go. UAS FM. There you go. So here's the link to the US facility map. This is what I used to do my planning pretty much entirely. I go in here, I put the address where I'm going to fly, where I find it on the map, and then I can see exactly what airspace. Then I usually go to a sectional chart on top of it to get additional information. But yeah, that's where I would go. Andrew says, how is it legal to do a drone light show over a crowd of people when you're not supposed to fly over people? So Andrew, usually the drone light shows do not fly over crowds. The FAA is very, very picky about drone light shows. And so in most cases, they're designed to be over an area that is corded off, that's restricted, where nobody can go underneath the light show. Now, it may look like they're flying over people, but I can almost guarantee you that they're not, at least in the United States. The FAA, just usually does not allow this kind of activity. So, and the people that have drone light show approval don't usually take the risk of flying over people. So they're usually pretty, really professional organizations. Since I know you have a VLOS waiver, can I ask how you get it? Yes, you can ask. It's a long answer. It was quite a bit of back and forth with the FAA. It's also pretty restrictive. BVLOS waivers are not, you take off and then you go fly for miles and there's nothing else involved. We still have to have a visual observer that follows the drone on the ground. Although our pilots does not see the drone when it flies, our visual observer always have line of sight, and they do it in a vehicle. We're restricted to a specific area. And then we have to be in radio contact with other people on the ground. We have to wear special apparel. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved with the waiver. Now, since you ask, we actually have a waiver course that is going to be coming out hopefully on Friday. We're pushing really hard to get it done on Friday, where we're going to give you tips on how to submit all these waivers, including beyond visual line of sight. I recorded the course last week. It's in depth. It's really cool. And yeah, we're hoping that we can get this to you guys very soon. And yeah, Friday is our goal. So hopefully I didn't misspeak, and we'll get it to you available. It's going to be a paid course, not a free course, but tons of information about how we get our waivers, the things that we've learned over the process, and we'll even have an option where you can hire us to submit your waiver. Also an additional fee, because as you can imagine, it takes a lot of manpower to do this. So we'll be able to help you doing this for a minimal fee, and then hopefully help you get your stuff. I see somebody asking, where do you apply for waiver? You apply for waiver on the FAA Drone Zone website. There's quite a few things. That's why we made a course, and that's why that course is going to be 4 hours long, I think, of just explaining how you do it, the things you have to get ready beforehand, how you actually submit the waiver, how you apply for it, what if you get denied. There's so much that goes into this. The questions the FAA want you to answer, some tips on how to answer those questions, a review of risk management, risk analysis. There's just so much to cover, and it's cool. I think this is one of the, quite frankly, we have 40 some courses now. This is one of the best course I think we've recorded, and that's a lot to say. It was just really cool. Wow, we still have a lot of questions. Okay, we only have 10 more minutes, so I'm gonna keep going. Is it legal to track wildlife, not for hunting, just for footage? Track, yes. Not for hunting, yes. Harass, no. So you cannot harass wildlife. Hunting is a whole new thing and depends on your state. But don't harass wildlife. You can track them, yes, for footage. If I want to fly near an airport and I have LAANC authorization, will the DJI geofence automatically unlock? No. The DJI geofencing and the FAA approval are two different approval. They don't talk to each other. So when you get approval from the FAA, it doesn't mean that it gives you approval from DJI, and vice versa. If you get DJI approval, it does not give you approval at the FAA level. So you have to do both. So yeah, I want to make sure. This is one answer that one question we have every week, and so I want to make sure we're clear on that. Has anyone heard of the FAA being lax on flying over people rule? They're not. I can tell you that. My employer recently asked a number of the FAA about it and stated not concerned with urban flying. I don't know what that means, but I can tell you they're definitely not lax over flying over people. Don't do it without proper approval and proper planning as well. Steve Riley says, if you're using your drone to check leaves in your gutter, it's 107. It's not recreational. Yep, that's correct. I used that in the course. That's the perfect example of the purpose of a flight. If the drone are flying over water but can still be seen by the people, then what is the rule of distance and angle that defines a drone over people? Over is over. It's just that. Literally, if a drone is over some part of the body, if I extend my hands like this and there's a drone flying over my hand, it's technically over a person. That's how the FAA looks at it. Now, you have to keep in mind that as a drone moves forward, it's got energy, and if it loses a motor or a battery or whatever, then it's going to keep going forward. And if you hit someone after it goes forward, then that's going to get you in trouble. So keep that in mind. In most cases, these drones, light shows, they have a perimeter. We watched one in Colorado, and they showed us the whole system. It was really, really cool. They have a perimeter right here that tells them this is where the drones are going to be, and here's the cone of safety around it, so that at any time when the drones are moving, if we lose a motor, it's not going to go any further than that. And then on top of it, they have another safety added to it, whereas the area that's going to be corded off and restricted. So there's plenty of space in here that's put in place for them to be safe, so they don't fly over people. But over people is just that. What kind of insurance do I need for a drone business? Technically, no insurance as far as the FAA is concerned. but recommended is going to be your liability insurance 100%. So in case something happens, you want to make sure you're covered for liability. And then whole insurance is going to be to cover your equipment in case you lose it. So if you have an expensive drone, you want whole equipment. If it's a $5,000 drone, it breaks, they'll give you money to replace the drone. If it's a liability insurance and you hit someone or somebody's building, then you're covered for the liability associated with that. I know I'm going faster now, but the questions keep coming. Alex says, do I need a license to fly a DJI Air 2S in the USA? It depends. If you're flying for recreational purposes, you need to follow all the rules to fly recreationally, Alex, which are at least get the trust certificate done, get registration, and then follow CBO guidelines, community-based organizations. If you're flying for anything else than recreational, then yes, you do need to have a Part 107 certificate. Do you think the Mini 4 will go on sale anytime soon? DJI just had a Black Friday sale. I think it's still going on. So go on their website. I saw that they had the Pocket 4. Is that the one we have? 3? 3. Pocket 3 is the new one that came out. I saw that was on sale for like $100 off. I didn't look at the other ones, but I'm pretty sure the Mini was on there. So yes, I would say go take a look at their Black Friday. Last year, I had my local police department ask me if I could find an elderly person missing in that area. Is that 107? Yes, it is 100% Part 107. If my drone is under 249 grams, do I have to register it, or over 249 if I don't have Part 107? If you don't have Part 107 and you're flying for recreational purposes, you do not have to register a drone under 250 grams. If you are flying under Part 107, you have to register any drone regardless of weight. Does the Before You Fly app just register your drone? It does not. I am under a flight path when my drone, where they fly 1,000 feet above us. I am many miles from the airport. I assume Before You Fly would tell me if the airport is... Yes, Before You Fly will tell you if you need approval to fly in there, but it does not register your flight or your drone, so you still have to get airspace approval for that. Cody says, I just wanted to tell you I fell off studying for a bit, but I'm ready to go back. Do it, man. We're here to help. Big Papa Foot, Penny's ready to go. Big Papa Foot says, I have a Cricut machine. Cricut. Can I print a decal and put it on my drone? Yeah, absolutely. Yep, no problem there. Stuff says, where we can find local drone laws, takeoff, landing. So I'm going to put a link here to the wiki. So that's where you find local drone laws. At the top, you'll be able to click on states. Actually, this is, let me do another link here. States. There. That should help you get to the states area. Click your state, and then you'll be able to find local regulation. Okay. Woo. Asking about applying for BVLOS. My family has a farm, and I'd like my entire farm for BVLOS. How hard is that? Alan, it should not be. If you answer the correct questions, it should not be difficult. Well, it should not be too difficult to get it, especially over your own farm. That's what that course is going to be all about, getting approval for BVLOS, and we'll show you how the questions that you need to answer to do that. Rocky Mountain UAV says, what do you think of the new app AirHub? I think it's got some great extra that other apps do not offer. I'm not going to lie, not familiar with the app, so I probably should take a look at that. If you fly on the edge of class Bravo and have LAANC approval, should you also call the tower via phone, let them know? Nope. If you have LAANC approval, that's all you need. Do not call the tower. That's what LAANC was designed for. What app or program do you use to find the elevation of an area? That's a tough one. I would say, I usually just use my drone to do it, but there are topo maps. I don't know. Yeah, at your position, but not the terrain near you. I don't know what they're asking, actually. Yeah, if it's the elevation where you are, you can use your phone. Your iPhone will tell you that. There is an app that will give you elevation. As far as elevation nearby, I fly the drone, put the camera at 0-degree angle like this, and then just see when you start to get level with the terrain, that tells you the height of those obstacles. Sky Curtain says, in Hawaii, I read about some law prohibiting you flying 300 feet from whales. I'm assuming you can actually do this because it's not an airspace thing. That's probably a wildlife harassment law. If it's asking you to stay away, I would stay away, quite frankly. I think it's the right thing to do. As far as can they do it, it's not controlling the airspace, it's controlling wildlife. So I'm going to say I think they can do it. I tend to, these rules to me kind of make sense. It's, so I would personally do it, but yeah. Hard to tell the legality of it, but I think it is legal for them to do that. Jimothy, hey Jimothy, says, why hasn't the Mavic 2 series gotten on the list of RID compliant yet? They already get the firmware update. The same reason why the Air 3 and the Mini 4 and other are not on the list. It's a FAA issue. It's at the IT level with the FAA. That's what we've been told. And they have a bug where they cannot submit approval. And so it's been going on for a while. I don't know why it's not fixed. Well, I know why it's not fixed, but I'm not going to say it. But it's not fixed. And so at this stage, I don't think we're going to see new approval for a while until they get it done, which sucks. By the way, Jared says use Google Earth to find the elevation. Yeah, that's great. He says it does a pretty good job, close to about 5 feet, which is awesome. Okay, 2 more questions and then we're going to stop. Rajesh says, I'm an Indian citizen. Which document do I need for Part 107? You're going to need your proof of ID, so your passport. I don't know if you're in the US or not, but when you come to the US, you're going to need to have proof of ID. Do you recommend SkyVector? Yeah, we use SkyVector all the time. SkyVector is great for getting access to sectional charts. I recommend SkyVector in addition to the UAS facility map because it's more precise than sectional charts. But it's great. It's great to see. All right, folks, it's time. It's 5 p.m. here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the questions. That was definitely a rapid fire at the end here. We're going to shut down the questions for now. But if I didn't answer, I apologize. It just, we could be here for several hours answering these questions. But you guys did great. Next week, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be here next week. That's going to be the week. Well, on Friday, we're making a cool announcement, but you'll see in news updates. So should watch the next video on Friday. And then other than that, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the questions. And a lot of you still here live. So thanks a bunch. And we'll see you on Friday.